Partition was never inevitable, but it certainly grew more likely in the summer of 1947. British India was a country made up of a wide range of different communities. Hindus constituted the largest grouping, something like 70%. Muslims, the second largest, at around 20%. If we go back a little bit into the earlier years of British rule in India, what we find is that the British looked for people to cooperate with the imperial state, and certainly identified different groups as being useful in this way. By the early 20th century, the Indian National Congress, the main nationalist organisation, had emerged. It was a secular organisation, but inevitably a majority of its members were Hindus. So in that context, other minority groups felt a certain level of uncertainty as to whether or not their interests were going to be represented by it. And what we see is separate political organisations emerging that claim to represent the interests of these minorities. And in that context, we see the British introducing policies that played to the concerns of those communities. So there's an element of divide and rule coming into play. And this is particularly apparent as far as India's Muslims were concerned. So right from the early 20th century, the political decisions being made by the British in a way inserted gaps or differences between communities, and gradually that had the effect of pushing at least some of these communities apart. So, but we still can't say that partition was inevitable in the early 20th century. What we can say, however, is that there needed to be a compromise when independence took place that would satisfy both the majority and the concerns of the minority. And it was in the sort of impasse, the stalemate in terms of negotiations that emerged after the Second World War that this became a real sticking point. The Congress, led by that time by Jawaharlal Nehru, wanted a federal India with a lot of power concentrated in the centre, a centre that would be dominated by the Congress. The Muslim League, a party that had emerged in the early 20th century, not done very well until the Second World War, but the Second World War had enhanced its reputation, taken it to the top table, in effect, when it came to negotiations. The Muslim League wanted a looser federal structure in which there would be subunits, really, that would allow minorities more space to have their views, their opinions heard. And the failure to find a compromise over this led to the situation in 1947 when Lord Louis Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of British India, was brought in to try and sort out the problem. He was a military man and used to sorting out problems. And the way he attempted to sort out the problem was to shorten the time frame involved. Instead of independence, as by that stage it was going to happen in 1948, June 48, he brought it forward to August 47, and he basically said, we're leaving then, you've got to sort out your differences, reach a compromise, and the compromise that was reached was partition. And on the 3rd of June 1947, the partition plan was announced, and so really it's at that point that partition became inevitable.